Hello and welcome back to Scouching. Today we're going to start with a little bit of story time from behind the scenes here at Scouching headquarters, and we are a survivor family in this household, and we have been since I think season 28, or at least I have. And over the years, they've tried this twist where they send someone who gets voted off to live alone on an island, to be alone with their thoughts, rethinking their strategy, why all their friends voted them out, and just to be alone for a little while before potentially re-entering the game. And that feels like it's been my experience with the player that we're profiling this season in Brad Lambert of the Lahti Pelicans in the Finnish Liiga. Before this season, everyone knew who Brad Lambert was. He was a lock to be a top 3 pick in this year's draft, and a potential threat even to Shane Wright. But it did not take long for things to drastically shift. Teammate Joakim Kamel seemed to have the magic touch. A point every game. Every puck he shot seemed to go in the net. Meanwhile, Brad Lambert just could not buy a goal. In fact, not only could he not buy one, it almost was like he couldn't find one in the discount bin at the electronics section in Walmart. And you can find pretty much anything in there if you dig deep enough. And as such, Kamel shot up everybody's draft boards by the time Christmas rolled around, being a lock at 2nd overall for some people, while Brad Lambert got the Woody treatment from Andy in Toy Story being dropped on the floor, saying, "I don't want to play with you anymore," and moving on to play with the new Buzz Lightyear toy. And now in the time since, you've had Lambert change teams, which some people seem to not like. You have unsubstantiated rumors of troublesome, middling parents. I mean, I live in Canada. Where have I ever heard of middling hockey parents before? And just a number of swirling rumors are out there about Brad Lambert that it seems that undersized, somewhat underperforming, skilled European players seem to get labeled with a lot of times in my lifetime that I can remember. But through it all, continuously having faith in my guy, there I was. And yes, his entire season as a whole sample was not particularly great, but I still think that there is a ton to like about this player, and I want to show you why. And we will start with the tracking data here with Brad Lambert, and let me tell you, this was one of the most confusing, frustrating, bizarre, silly, and sadistically wonderful experiences that I have had tracking any player ever. So we'll start with pure possession numbers, and in terms of that area of the game, Lambert was, bad? Really bad. He finished his sample with a 21% dangerous shot attempt percentage, which is second worst amongst forwards I've tracked this season. He is 80th in dangerous shot attempts for and 73rd in dangerous shot attempts against. His rate of dangerous pass attempts and dangerous shot attempts sits 67th and 69th respectively. He is 50th in shot assists. In terms of the percentage of teams' shot attempts that are Brad Lambert's, he sits 56th. And when he did take dangerous pass attempts, he completed them at a rate that put him 71st amongst forwards in my data set. So just looking at that, it is very easy to see why so many people have sent Brad Lambert out to pasture over the course of this season. But, and this is why I track the data that I do, the transition data for Brad Lambert was a complete mirror image of that. He maintained control on 75% of his offensive transitions, and this was in a Liiga sample that encompassed the entire season in that league for him. He was involved in 34% of his team's transitions as well offensively, and he had the 21st highest percentage involvement in defensive transitions, shutting down about 60% of them. And he did it by using physical imposition and trying to win races to loose pucks a lot more than a lot of other younger players I've tracked this year, especially when you consider that he isn't a particularly big player, but he certainly was getting involved physically and trying to win these battles. But one thing I really need to highlight before we get into the video here is the change in the data that I tracked that basically happened overnight when he left his team in Jyväskylä and moved over to his new team in Lahti. We'll start with his pass percentage, which went from a very good 82% in the Liiga to 60%, which I would say is far more pedestrian at the men's level. His offensive transition involvement went from 40% to 25%. He went from 58 controlled offensive transitions per 60 minutes with Jyväskylä to 30 with Lahti. And if he maintained 58 controlled offensive transitions per 60 minutes in this sample, he would have finished top 10 amongst the players that I've tracked that play forward. And that would have put him way ahead of every other men's league player that I tracked this season. The next one would have been Liam Ogren. His rate of control on offensive transitions as well went from an astounding 83% to 59% with Pelicans Lahti. Over the 4 games I tracked with Jyväskylä, he was a breakout target and received passes with control 19 times. With the 3-game sample in Lahti, that happened 4 times. I can keep going here. With Jyväskylä, they took a total of 6 high-danger shot attempts. Brad Lambert took 4, and when he moved over to Lahti in his 3-game sample, the team had 2 dangerous shot attempts of any kind. Lambert had both. He had 2 shot assists literally every single game he played with Jyväskylä. That number went to 1 every single game he was playing with Lahti. And this one's just hilarious, so I need to share it with you, but the rate at which his team generated offensive shot attempts steadily declined every single game he played, literally in sequence. Now, he didn't play a ton of minutes in game 1, and his team registered a ton of shot attempts, and it ended up at 101 shot attempts per 60 minutes. But it went from 101 to around the 50s for a couple of games, and by the end of the year, the number reached 24. And he was often just the only player on the ice taking any kind of dangerous attempt shooting the puck himself. Tracking this guy was agonizing. I don't know how else I can explain it, but in ways that aren't actually detrimental to him. It was just painful. And that might be a clue why he's not particularly scoring a whole bunch. Changing teams in the middle of the year, unequivocally, something went wrong. He is across the board just not as effective of a player. But all of the dangerous offense that came on the ice when he was playing with the Pelicans came from him. I mean, think about it this way. He had 4 total shot attempts come off his own stick in his time with Pelicans that I tracked, and 3 total shot assists in those 3 games as well. You want to know how many total shot attempts Pelicans took across those 3 games with him on the ice? 18. So he factored into 7 of those 18 shot attempts directly. But in his time with Jyväskylä, he was clearly just a cut above the rest, and I think just kind of snake bitten in a few different ways we'll dig into a little later. An 80% transition percentage with 40% transition involvement and completing 80% of his passes is a combination I have not seen before, especially in the men's league level. That's an unbelievable starting point, and to see it all completely collapse after changing teams midway through the season, well, it just broke my tiny little black heart. But to help make us all feel better, I think there's still hope, and the video I think will show you why I think that. So in terms of raw speed, skill, and pace of play, I don't think anybody can hold a candle to Brad Lambert right now. He at least belongs in the top group when it comes to those traits all intertwining and coming together. With Jyväskylä, he found ways to use that quickness to make himself a pass reception target, using complicated skill to take poor passes in transition and gain control of pucks effectively, and he showed the puck skill to create really interesting passing lanes to gain those really controlled passing metrics across blue lines. And that combination of escape speed and complicated skill and interesting pass lane creation is what drove a lot of these really good offensive transition metrics. And I'm gonna get this out of the way. I just will not listen to anyone who questions Brad Lambert's work ethic out there. The guy goes out there, and in a lot of situations, you can tell that he's really trying. The number of times he caught up with and pressured opponents on loose puck retrievals at both ends of the ice, and doing what he could to gain possession or at least create space for line mates in possession in the offensive zone and defensive one, he did that really well in a number of situations I saw across the course of this season. That speed came in handy chasing down icings. Even though he didn't beat out an icing call like the one I'm showing here, he at least shows the initiative to really make the decision kind of difficult for the referee here. He reads oncoming pressure with agility and that skill level extremely well, and I think if he can refine it and get a little bit more comfortable on his feet and a little bit more agile and skilled, he could be an even more devastating offensive threat than he already could be. He uses his feet to apply pressure defensively a lot more often than you might think, and I felt that he showed good natural instincts to put in the work necessary to get the job done more often than a lot of young players I've seen in this year's draft. Diving into physical contact along the boards happened from time to time, but it was an inconsistency that I would like shored up with Lambert a little bit more. But where he really shines is using his edges and agility to escape oncoming pressure, looking for options and executing on those options, which I think is an ability that will take him a long way. It wasn't always perfect, but showing what he showed me playing in the Liiga basically all season long was really impressive to me, and I think there's a lot to work with here. A big shift for me after leaving Jyväskylä is that Lahti wasn't using him as a center very often, which not only confused me, but enraged me at times. Considering the pace and the skill that he plays with and how good he is in open ice when you give him a little bit of freedom to control the puck and control the offensive transitions that he can quarterback, taking that away from him by making him a player along the boards on the wings really seemed to take away a lot from his game, which I think factored into why his metrics took a nosedive. And on top of that, I loved how he used his speed to impose himself defensively, close out defensive rushes, and just get involved to try to clog up the middle of the ice playing center. And at wing, he just didn't seem as effective in that role. And with Lambert, I love when teams deploy him as that first forechecker, chasing down the main breakout option, trying to stymie that breakout before it even happens. He just has the speed that allows him to get around the ice quicker, get into the right place at the right time faster. And I want to go back to this complex pass lane creation. It felt like with Jyväskylä, he had a lot more freedom to play in open ice and play with skill, and guys would positionally support him so he could use these complex pass creation and his skill to move pucks efficiently. That just evaporated when he moved over to Lahti. And that skill level also came in small area problem solving. He put pucks through defenders' feet with real quickness and intensity, but I felt as time went on, not only did he become less active doing these kinds of things, but also just less accurate. But this guy just covers ice so well, and I think brings a lot of the right instincts a lot of the time when he's playing. Especially when he's trying to gain possession and trying to hang on to it and quarterbacking possessions up the ice. And he just struck me as a player that made life a lot easier for his line mates. So why is he not scoring? With Jyväskylä, he undershot what people expected. When he went to Lahti, he also undershot what people expected. And I will admit, that is a legitimate concern, but it is pivotal to look a little deeper and think about why this might be happening. Honestly, watching Brad Lambert, part of it, I honestly can't help but say it, is luck. There are times where you see what Brad Lambert is capable of, and he gets those dangerous chances himself, but sometimes the dang puck just doesn't go in the dang net. But there are actual issues with Brad Lambert that I think need to be worked on and developed, and they all revolve around my least favorite phrase in hockey right now, which is hockey sense. Ugh. But Lambert to me did show a lack of this eyes on the back of your head instinct when monitoring trailing back checkers. He could hold on to the puck for too long, looking for options that kind of aren't there, and end up losing possession a little bit too easily when that trailing back checker catches up with him. He found good routes and lanes to get into scoring position, but I felt he could just hold on to the puck and hold on to the puck and hold on to the puck and fly around the perimeter looking for options. And it felt like he was looking for the most dangerous opportunity before looking for just an opportunity. And I felt that this led to a lot of unnecessary lapses in possession, and pucks would come the other way before he could even get an offensive chance going in the offensive zone, even after he was the one responsible for getting the puck in the offensive zone in the first place. In this clip here, he is a decent scoring option on the rush, but I would like to see him get to that backdoor side of the net, and when the puck comes around the other side, they've got 4 forwards collapsing on one defensive player trying to get the puck free, when Lambert could be in the corner providing some support in a dangerous area to make a more dangerous pass, rather than having 4 guys crowded around. In my view, he also had a lot of trouble just spotting simpler passing lanes that were right in front of him that could have led to dangerous offense. And ignoring things that are in his line of sight that might be simpler but also don't involve tremendous amounts of possession on his part is a big part of why I think his production was limited. And I've spoken well about Lambert's work rate and his defensive rush abilities, but on defensive cycles, things also do take a bit of a turn for the worse with Lambert. And let me tell you, he certainly got a lot of practice playing with Lahti because they were in the defensive zone a tremendous amount with him on the ice, and he did seem to really have trouble using his quickness and physical imposition ability to choose the right times to step out of a defensive cycle and really pin a guy on the boards. He seemed to have trouble using his quickness to step into passing and shooting lanes, or even monitoring how those lanes are opening and closing defensively, which I think also extended these defensive cycles and inflated rates of shot attempts against. Sometimes I caught men being left wide open in scoring areas, and while Lambert, I think, is trying to make himself a breakout option, is not really a logical breakout option, and by leaving the man alone, the puck can just squirt out to that guy and you've got yourself a dangerous shot attempt against, while Lambert is thinking more about offense. So especially if he wants to play center down the road, I think this is going to need to be an area that gets shored up a bit. I think there's enough there to work with that could improve, and I feel like a better situation for him will make things better, but it was something that I noted. And there were some times where I felt that he could take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit on his back checks and just giving too much space to forwards that are carrying the puck in the defensive end. So working on his pivots and agility should help him get around the defensive end and monitor the neutral zone a little better than he does. But these things all combined to make defensive cycles extended a long time with him on the ice, leading to really poor defensive results and a real lack of offensive opportunity. But also, I want to mention this. Holy God, I really just don't think he got that much support from any of his line mates that he played with this season. And I really don't think with Lahti that he was put in a position to use his best traits the way that he needs to use them to drive results. As I mentioned before, he seemed to be moved to the wing with Lahti pretty much full time, which removed his role as a great breakout option up the middle of the ice with some time and space to play with, swinging low in the defensive zone, grabbing pucks and carrying them up the ice himself. But Lahti felt that Lambert belonged on the wing, and their weird and gross and unproductive 5-man wide horizontal line breakout, where honestly, when you look at how they break the puck out of the defensive zone a lot, Brad Lambert may as well be me out there. Don't believe that that's something they would do more than once? Well, here's another clip of them breaking the puck out 5 men wide with pretty much no momentum, being extraordinarily easy to defend in my opinion. And I'm going to highlight a clip here where Brad Lambert gains separation speed and has enough to be a passing target here to gain an easy offensive entry. But what does this defenseman do? Dumps the puck in the offensive zone, doesn't even try to get the puck to Brad Lambert. What does Lambert do? Wins the race to the dumped puck in the offensive zone and gains possession. The team just felt like a total complete mess that really couldn't have done much for his confidence down the stretch of this season leading into the NHL Draft. When he did use himself as a breakout option, getting pucks below his own goal line, I'd think, okay, here we go, Brad, do the thing. Do the thing, finally, please. Only to see him make a very strange decision but still manage to maintain possession of the puck, send a pretty decent pass attempt as a breakout, only for the pass to be missed and float into the neutral zone for an easy turnover for the opposing team to take the other way again. But let's zoom out a little bit and think about what actually Brad Lambert can do to, in my opinion, improve a little bit. And I think a lot of it will just come down to improving on his agility more than he already is. A better first couple of steps and a more consistent willingness to challenge puck carriers could go a long way for Lambert down the road. I found him sometimes trying to anticipate play a little bit too much from a distance, so using his feet and trusting them and really being an active player a lot more than he is, I think will go a long way. Taking calmer and simpler reads, pre-scanning before gaining possession of the puck should all help him enable and maintain offensive possession a little bit more and get more chances on net than he was able to generate. And while I think a lot of these things could make him a pretty good line mate, I'm going to list off some of the line mates he spent the most time with this year. Reed Gardner, Antti Tirvainen, Mika Roine, and Braden Christopher, with his best results this year playing in relatively limited minutes with a much better Liiga player in Jerry Turkalainen, member of Team Scouching, and a pretty well-regarded NHL prospect in Patrick Puistola, let alone playing at the World Juniors with guys like Samuel Hellenius, who are young and play with some pace and have some physical resilience that I just didn't see a whole lot of out of Lambert's line mates this season. So to me, it'll just be a matter of settling into the game a little more, bringing those high-end offensive plays while also being able to recognize the simpler and effective ones that can be just as dangerous. So the best part of Brad Lambert's game to me is simple. It's his speed and skill combination. There isn't anyone in this year's draft that really is quite on his level. At his best, the hands, the agility, and the confidence are all really high level. And I found he could walk through traffic and control pucks with ease a lot, especially in the offensive zone. With Jyväskylä, if you hit him with a breakout pass, he's basically an automatic offensive entry, and he did that in every single game I tracked. He could use his body to protect the puck as well, dropping his shoulder, using his edges to protect the puck, and it all just made him a really good quarterback with the puck on his stick. So I'll be fascinated to see if he can learn how to balance his play a little bit more between high-end creativity and sort of more low-end, safe, effective play. The good part is his defensive intensity, especially on defensive rushes. His speed couples with a real hunger for the puck, especially if there's offense to be had. He was chasing down loose pucks and winning races a lot more often than a lot of other young players in this year's draft were, especially the ones playing in men's leagues. And he wasn't always the first one to win races to those pucks, but he was involved and got physically involved when necessary. His abilities to push defenders deep in the offensive zone and challenge them into making decisions before they're ready, I think is a trait that you will definitely need to see in the NHL, and I think he already brings that. And I just really like players that make the game come to them and dictate the terms of the game rather than reacting to what the opponent is doing. And Lambert brings that instinct. The not so good part is just his consistency with that defensive intensity and his puck management skill. There is absolutely truth to the sentiment out there that Brad Lambert can be a frustrating player to watch. You can clearly tell the talent and upside that he has while remaining frustrated that he just hasn't been able to settle in and put it all together and really become that offensive dynamo we've all thought and seen over the last couple of years. Yes, he could bite off more than he can chew in some terrible situations, but I felt that this didn't really happen as much as some people might have let on. For all that defensive intensity I saw on extended defensive cycles, he could get bogged down and things just really slowed to a crawl in terms of shutting down those cycles, and he felt slower to read and react to changes in play that really led to these bad defensive results for Lambert. So refining his defensive work rate, especially locked in defensive cycles, could go a long way to shutting down play and keeping those defensive shot against rates low, but also making better and I would say less greasy decisions with the puck will really help him unlock offensive potential down the road. So let's wind the clock back a little bit to close this video. I remember during the 2021 Under-18 tournament last summer, I was talking to close friend and colleague Samuel McGilligan, who's a great follow on Twitter, and I told him that I had a weird funny feeling that Brad Lambert kind of reminded me of a more pacey and skilled version of Kent Johnson. The processing issues led to similar frustrations, but the talent and the potential was just undeniable. And it was so blatantly clear that it was really frustrating to see a player like that kind of fall short a little bit in terms of offensive production. He's speedy, but getting a little bit more explosive and quick will certainly help him escape pressure a little bit better than he already does. And it isn't like Lambert didn't try to score points, as he did have some high danger chances and did try to get pucks to the middle of the ice some of the time. It was just low even for a Liiga player. And he showed a capability of misdirecting opponents using body fakes and skill and sending passes in weird complex directions that just worked. And in my opinion, the dude started the season with Jyväskylä and was snake bitten for a very long time. He moves to Lahti and is put in a position that just does not really lead into the real strengths of his game and framed him as if he was just any other offensive Liiga player, which in my opinion he most definitely is not. But I will admit, I'm sticking my neck out for Brad Lambert here. He had a very good couple of games of the World Junior, and when he has played with Finland's under-20 team this year, he's performed quite well. Playing with faster and more skilled line mates in these tournaments with a more progressive mindset has really helped him in those situations. And while he's a little flawed, I'm really convinced that he is not the sole reason why all these numbers have been so poor in my tracking data. So the big question is, where do we go with him? Honestly, I want to take the best parts of his game and make them even better. Get quicker with your feet. Get quicker with your hands. Bring that loose puck intensity to more defensive cycle situations. Bring that defensive rush intensity to cycles a little bit more often and work on your pivoting to be more involved defensively. And coaches need to trust him and try playing him up the middle, giving him time and space to play with, let him make mistakes and find that balance that he needs to find in order to be a really truly dynamic offensive presence. But all in all, there is, in my opinion, a tremendous toolkit to work with here. It will require development and patience and a close relationship with the player in order to really help him along, in my opinion. But at the NHL Combine, Lambert said he does not have a contract to play anywhere next season. Does that mean he could be in the AHL next season, or with the Saskatoon Blades, or back in the Liiga? I don't know. But in my opinion, I would at least want to see him on smaller ice in North America and just get a total reset on his career. But I have resigned myself to the fact that Brad Lambert is, relative to where I rank him, probably gonna start slipping in this draft. And if that happens, I get the feeling that you are getting some extreme value pretty quickly in this year's draft class with all of the question marks that surround a lot of the other players in this year's class. If he's available in the teens range of this year's draft, I really think that's a great place to take a chance on him. And if Brad Lambert slips all the way to the end of the first round, a contending team might get the chance to add another core player for their franchise, or a rebuilding team that may draft a player like, I don't know, Shane Wright, might end up with another high upside guy that can play down the middle, and if Brad Lambert hits, your rebuild goes by a lot faster. So in my view, through all the ups and downs, I remain positive on Brad Lambert, and I am going to be cheering him along the whole way. Like Aatu Ratti last year, who was a player I felt just needed a hug and a change of scenery, and I cannot wait to see what happens with his career and where he ends up in the NHL draft. I just really hope it's the right landing spot. So that's it for that report, and thanks for watching. If you liked it, you can click all the buttons below me so you never miss another one. If you really liked it, you could subscribe on Patreon or here on YouTube by clicking join below to join the YouTube membership program. You'll gain access to player cards, exclusive data sheets for hundreds of drafted and undrafted prospects around the world, early access to videos, written reports, and plenty of other goodies. Or you can pick up some merchandise from the Scouching Shop where 50% of profits go to the Women's Sports Foundation. So that's all, and we'll see you in the next one.